Hey everyone, Eric here. It's Friday again, so we're doing another video about my mixbus. So last couple of weeks I've talked about the Elysia Alpha compressor and the Loop Trotter Saturate, and also the SSL Native Bus Compressor 2. Today we're looking at my all-time favorite mixbus EQ, and that is dun, 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 dun. The Chandler Limited Curve Bender, manufactured by Softube in their plug-in form. I actually own the license for the Xena, the whatever it's called, they call it the Xena Bender or whatever. It combines the limiter, the Xena limiter up top, and the curve bender down the bottom. I'm pretty sure I bought the curve bender by itself first, and then I thought, okay, why not just upgrade the license because it was on sale or something to get the limiter as well for like a two-in-one / all-in-one plugin. I'll talk a little bit more about my specific use case for it later, but seeing as we've got the plug open, let's talk about how I use it. So we'll start up the top here. I know obviously this is not an EQ, but because it's in the plugin and I use it, I might as well talk about it. I've linked both the channels for both the EQ and the limiter, and I've got it in stereo mode. And again, I'll talk about this in more detail later on. This is going to be a long video, buckle up guys. So yeah, linked. And let's just look at the top left part here of the limiter, which is gonna be the master for both channels of our limiter. I've got the input gain on low. Input is typically set at either 4 or 5 or 6, one of those. I don't like the half step things. I think it kind of, I don't think that way. So it's easier for me to just go 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. So in this case, we've got 4. Output is set to 10 because you do lose volume and it's really hard to compensate gain on this. The comp setting is put on comp 1, not limit. I like a more kind of gentle compression kind of thing going on. Sidechain, internal sidechain filter at 300 Hertz. Release to be relatively fast, attack to be the slowest, and it's set in limit mode, not THD mode. I'm gonna say a couple of things about this limiter. Firstly, I don't really like it. I can't get a great sound out of it. Guys, if you know how to get a good sound out of it, just let me know. It's probably to do with the attack and release curves, but I just can't get it to work for me. So I end up just setting it so that it does a very, very, very tiny amount of gain reduction. As you can see, that needle rarely moves. I'm playing the loudest part of my chorus for one of my songs. And I kind of trust the meters that Pro Tools gives me, like the summed gain reduction meter here. Because this meter is really, really hard to read. And I just don't get it. Like, it starts at less than 0 and then the gain reduction is less than 0. I don't know how you can get like negative gain reduction. It's a bit weird. And then I just kind of have it, I need to have it less than 4. Like even above halfway between 0 and 4, it starts to sound really, really bad. Like, it's really easy to get a bad sound out of this limiter for me. The less you crank it, the less hot you drive it, the better it sounds, at least for me. The more gain reduction it does, and the more whatever it does, the more anything it does, the worse it sounds. So I don't really like it. I just have it in there because I can have I just squeeze a little bit more gain reduction into my chain before we get to the mastering bus. But yeah, as I said, like I only upgraded this license just to get a bit more gain reduction, a bit more compression in, and now that I've had experience with it, maybe maybe I wouldn't do that again if I had my time over. But anyway, that's the Chandler Limiter, Zener Limiter, whatever, yeah. So it's just doing a minimal amount of gain reduction, and then it's feeding into the EQ. And this is what I want to talk about most today. This is the best EQ I have ever used for mixbus applications. It has 4 bands. Again, I'm linking the left and right channels, and I've got it in stereo mode and not mid-side mode. It's got 4 bands. You got the low end, the low mids, the high mids, and the highs. Using 4 bands only forces you to be really, really focused on building your mix first before you do any EQing. So like, for example, if I think a mix lacks low mids, instead of like boosting a whole bunch of low mids here, which I guess I can do, I would probably go back to each individual element within my mix and try and see if there's anything that has low mids that I can EQ and boost the low mids of individual elements, or if there's like a low mid heavy track, for example, let's say it's a bass guitar, I'll probably look to bump up that fader a little bit before I reach here. And that's the beauty of this thing. It kind of, I'm a big fan of bottom-up mixing, so it really forces you to be good at to kind of get the right sounds at the earliest possible stage before you reach for anything top down and heavy-handed that way. So yeah, it has this 0 to 5 dB boost, right? And this kind of, again, it limits you can't just boost like 10 dB of a certain frequency. Well, you can, but like it kind of forces you to build your mix up with purpose and with thoughtfulness before you kind of reach for any kind of tool like this. And all it really does is it does it's a very smooth bump. I love what it does for the mid-range. It's a very I hate the word musical, but it's a very gentle but also very audible kind of mid-range EQ. And I generally have this presence, this kind of low mid thing set to 0.8 or 1.2K, and this upper mids to 2.8. And this high band I'd either have set to 6.5 or 10, and this low band, which I'm using less and less of these days, either 150 or even up to 300. The best thing about this equalizer is not only its sound, but the way it kind of limits you. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it limits what you can do with it so that it will force you to kind of get those sounds earlier on in the chain and it makes whatever moves you do here way more powerful, and it gives you way more control. Another thing that I find myself doing often these days is that I will change the low band from a shelf to a peak, and if I need extra low mids, I'll set it to like 300 and like the peak, the bell filter instead of the shelf filter there. Another thing I recently discovered, right, is this kind of multiplier thingy. So the mastering mode, as I understand it, it has the Q set to 1, and then I don't even know if I don't think this is a Q, to be honest with you. It will have this times 1 multiplier, and then it has this 1.5 multiplier, which turns this 0 to 5 thing into a 0 to 15 thing. So you have 15, potentially like plus or minus 15 decibels of gain on tap compared to plus and minus 5. So if you really need some extra something and the mix just doesn't have it, that's a trick that I can use. And I love how it's like per band. Oftentimes I feel like my music is lacking in low mids, so I'll turn this to 1.5 and then I get like a bunch of extra gain available for my low mid boost. I'll also just say a couple of things about, like, in a more macro sense about this equalizer, this Curve Bender EQ. When I first tried it, I couldn't understand it, so I put it aside. Like, remember, I don't know if I mentioned this, but at the time I bought this, it was because I wasn't very impressed with the UAD Manly Massive Passive mastering EQ. So I sought to have something else, like the mastering EQs, the Manly Massive Passive. The curves were just way too, there were too many options. It was too, you could get lost really easily in it and still not find the sound you're looking for. Whereas this is very, very simple. I'm pretty sure it has proportional cues, which again is another thing that makes you want to build your mix up and get that sound earlier in the chain rather than here. But it, you know, on a macro level, this EQ, when you do something, it changes the sound in a way that is not exactly explicable. I've seen a guy, a YouTuber, do a video on like EQ plugins and whether it's just a scam, whether it's all marketing. And he talked about how this particular EQ does a phase shift that models the phase shift of analog EQs. I believe it because you know, when I first used it, I thought I'd be using it in mid-side mode right here, but I found that if I had everything set to 0, like all the EQ bands set to 0, and I toggle on and off the mid-side processing, it changes the sound. It does a thing. It changes the sound, and it's weird, you know. And the only explanation I can find is that yes, it is doing some kind of weird phasey thing that is harder to model on like a digital EQ such as the Pro Q4 here. But yeah, this is my favorite mixbus EQ ever, and it lives on my mixbus permanently, and it will never ever go. So I love it and would highly recommend. Thanks for watching this video. See you guys again next time. Cheers.